So welcome to the pilot edition of the Train of Thought Presents video podcast, where we're going to be focusing on the local grassroots music scene, focusing on original acts in particular. And Kev, do you want to say a little bit about why we decided to embark upon this project?
Well, we thought it would be a good idea to sort of celebrate local bands, the art world, etc., and also help with listings, really, because one thing we want to have on this, it will eventually will be listings, because it's quite hard to find out what's on around Worthing. In my shop, I'm constantly being asked what gigs are on, etc. So hopefully this will help that. And we just want to celebrate all the local venues, all the local artists, keep it as open as possible, and that's it really. That's the main aim.
Yeah. I think it was just a great opportunity. We saw, that these guys, Synergy Podcast Studio, opening up and haven't been there for this long. And we've been talking about recording stuff at the shop for ages, haven't we? We're aware that sometimes
and we probably would have never got around to it.
People come down to the shop and there's like 12 people, really interesting talk, and we think, well, no one else got to enjoy that or rewatch it, that kind of thing.
And to get out to, hopefully get out to a different demographic.
Yeah, most definitely. We're looking to put on performers and promoters and really mix
everyone,
it up.
Artists, DJs, authors, anything to do with the arts around Worthing. Really.
It's going to be a mixture of reviews, but also looking forward to what's coming up. The
aim is to make it monthly, hopefully.
Yeah, it's going to be monthly.
We'll see how that goes, but monthly, and maybe the odd special. I like
special
the idea
guests.
of doing specials.
We've had 3 really great guests for this one. Okay. And, one of the things
we were also going to say, just as it's the end of the year and everyone does their end of the year bit, what were your 3 favourite events in Worthing this year?
Well, it's always tough, isn't it? Because you always remember things from the last 3 months, and 2 of these are from the last 3 months, and they're not in any particular order. And one of them, Jen's mentioned earlier in this podcast, which was Mythago, the border Morris dance grouping with drumming outside the Toad, with 150 people, all the people looking out the flats, all looking at this spectacular.
All the people coming out of Morrison's.
Yeah,
with their bargains.
There were 12 drummers and musicians and 15, 20 dancers.
Well, it was it was a bit like Slipknot versus Robin Hood, wasn't it? It really was it was quite spectacular.
It was jaw dropping. I don't think Worthing's seen anything like that before. And then Tankers to Henge, I was saying to Harry about that, because he was saying about Henge, and I was saying I saw Tankers to Henge, and it was really nice to see them at the Factory, having seen them at Victorious on a big stage, to see them in a kind of 200 cap venue, which was really good, really great sound. And then the third one's not really isn't a gig. It was a kind of an experience. There was live actors. There was also, I can't really, unless you were there, you can't quite take it on.
No, sadly couldn't go. But
it was Worthing Film Club's Tetsuya Iron Man at the West Worthing Brewery.
I've only heard good things about that.
Yeah, there was DJs, lighting. Yeah, it literally, I couldn't really...
No, everyone who went...
I couldn't really say much about it. And I saw Caroline the day after, and I just kept saying to her... It's not often
you're silenced, is it?
It's not often I'm silenced, and it's not often I'm kind of stunned by something being that good. Other than that, the Audio Active gig literally from last Saturday was really great.
Well, I think that's
really showed.
I'm not going to have that in
potential.
my 3, but that's just, I think we took a step up there, and hopefully that's going to become a regular part of the scene.
Yeah, I hope so. And we're looking to put on monthly stuff back in the Dickens, starting in. We're doing an Valentine's Day gig on February the 14th with Credentials headlining.
Like a Valentine's Day massacre.
Well, hopefully no blood spilt, but there'll be balaclavas certainly with them around. And we're also trying to support the Factory with some punk stuff next year. There's
well, hopefully the punk festival is for May is sort of coming together as we speak.
Yeah,
hopefully.
They've got Anti Nowhere League in February with support from fat problem. I think the credentials.
Well, I generally think the good thing is, and not just because with work, is that I think the factory is going to up the ante this year. It's doing a lot more original stuff, which, I mean, nothing against tribute bands because it subsidises a lot of stuff, but it does sound to me that there is going to be a lot more original stuff down there. Or heritage, as it's now known, which makes me feel very old, seeing as they're all from my age group. But
they've got UK subs on, I think, May the 22nd.
Yeah.
And with support from a band that we've been putting on for years, which is, and I'm going to give them a little plug in a second, which is Spock on the Bus, because I've got with me.
You got the Spock on the Bus CD, crowdfunded
Spock on the Bus album. Signed by them, a sneaky preview.
Any free biscuits with it?
Well, this album actually comes out in 2 days' time. I think on the 19th, if I've got my dates right.
That's quite a strange time. Well, they're trying to catch the Christmas market.
Yeah, so that's all good. So, they're supporting UK subs, and there's some other punk stuff coming later in the year. So that's really going to be exciting. Yeah,
well, and for me, my favourite events, it's quite difficult because it's quite difficult pushing your own events, but the Surf Fest at the two of them at the New Amsterdam every year is fantastic. Great pub, great atmosphere, fantastic bands, and it's free. And there's 2 of those coming up again this year. My other favourite, a punkish noise-ish, there was one a couple of months ago where there's a young band called Written in Red, and it was rammed, which, rammed in the cellars, not exactly, it's only 40 odd, but they're only 14 and 15, and it was quite, it was special, and they are.
Well, Harry was saying he's putting them on.
They are impressive, and, watching grown musicians sort of thinking, God, how can they be so good at that age? But that was pretty special for me. So they're my 3 really, and the one this weekend. But and also we had him on earlier. Well, no, we're having him on later. Luther.
Yes. Yeah.
The defining tens have just gone from strength to strength. If someone had said to me years ago when set up the cellar that we'd have, for me, Malander from Cabaret Voltaire, Rusty Egan, Dave Gedge, all these people in a funny little 40 cap venue. 45 seats, I guess.
Sells out.
It sells out every time, and he could feasibly take it to a bigger venue, but doesn't want to.
Yeah.
But I do think this year, I think the potential. That's why I think it's good timing that we're doing this, because the potential is quite amazing when you think that what the Dickens and hopefully Audioactive. I had a good chat with them today. I think that they could finally take place of 42, because I think many of us know that there's been a massive gap. Yeah,
there's so much potential, and we got so much. I think I'm really excited about the podcast going forwards, and then at the end of the podcast, we're going to do a little competition with some free tickets. So hopefully people watch it through, and then there's going to be a competition with 2 free tickets that we're going to announce at the end of the podcast. Hi Jen, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Thank you for inviting me along.
Okay, so our first guest on TOT Presents, so landlady and boss at the infamous Toad Pub. So Jen, can you tell us briefly, how did you come about landing, so to speak, in Worthing? How did you land here?
So I've got a pub and a microbrewery over in Brighton called the Hand in Hand, tiny little pub there. And we've got a brewery inside of it, which started in 1989. And it was everything was very contained, everything was in-house there, but we started to make so much beer, we needed a bigger place. So my business partner found an industrial estate just off Canterbury Road. And that was it. We got the keys in 2019. And then obviously the plague hit in 2020, but that was good for us because it meant we could just knuckle down and build it. So Jack project managed all of that. And then but I was still over in Brighton at that time. And then, but we had a tap room. I don't know if you ever went to the tap room, but we had a tap room on site at Canterbury Road. Yeah. And then actually it was my now landlord of the Toad and the Hall. He came in and said, my current tenant is selling the lease. I think you guys would do really well there.
Yeah, because in the tap room you sometimes had DJs, didn't you?
We did, yeah. We had bits and bobs going on there, and events and, graffiti weekenders, and where we built the walls for them and all sorts of stuff going on. And then so then he kind of, you know, I never used to be very good with change, but I was kind of up for this. I was up for seeing what this was all about. So my business partner asked and said, look, do you want to go and have a look at the pub? And as soon as I walked through the door, it had the same carpet as the hand. The exact same pattern.
So it was all about the carpet.
It was all about the carpet. I'm afraid I'm that easy, fickle,
so
weird.
The carpet's never changing.
No, exactly. Because the carpet at the hand was fairly famous. It'd been down for 40 years, that carpet, and it's still in good nick. And then, so when I walked into the Toad, which was the castle, and I saw the same carpet, and it had a violin, like I had a violin at the other place, and it had a singer-sewing machine. I've got a singer-sewing machine at the other place. There was these kind of echoes of kind of, you know, this sort of like siblings sort of thing. So I thought, okay. And also when the light comes in, it's a really beautiful light that hits inside the pub. And it just, I thought, you know what, this has got some warmth to it. And I just fell in love with the building. And that was in the September of 2022. Is it? No. 2021, I think, and then we exchanged and got the keys, and I think we were in there in January. Wow. And I worked like 16-hour days just trying to clean off paint and everything, and I totally bonded with it. It was kind of like a ship, you know, like you go in and you sand a ship down, sure. And it was just, I was just in there.
All the changes have all been very gradual and slow. Yeah. I don't mean that as a criticism. It's kind of like
don't have anybody.
Like you go in from one week to another and it doesn't seem the same. It seems the same, but you go in.
I've got a problem.
You go in 2 months later and you just notice something different, and then then there's the piano, and then there's a weird ornament that you found somewhere, and then. But and it has changed so much, but it's all been very gradual, I think. Yeah,
I am a bit of a collector, and I do love my bits and bobs. So it does, and also which I knew it would happen, and it happens at the hand as well. People bring you gifts, so now we're getting a collection of these weird toads.
You've got my telephone there.
And your telephone's sitting there, yeah. So people bring us weird ornaments and gifts and things and little curiosities. So they collect in the pub. I love it.
And can you tell us about some of the events that you put on last year, and maybe pick out 3, or it could be 2, or it could be 4, 3 of you. It doesn't have to be gigs, it doesn't have to be music, it could be live performances.
So I think for some of the things that we really enjoyed doing for the last 2 years was kind of Worthing Festival. When it first started, we put on quite a heavy roster of events, and I think probably one of the most special ones for me was because I was flipping the pub into a different environment every night, and one of the really special ones was when my friend Phil Smith, who is a wonderful human being, and he does a lot of improv, and he was playing the piano, and he played to he did some play to some silent films. So when he does his kind of improv silent film thing, I think it's under Beirut Gerust, which I think means blossom something, peach blossom or something in German. And but this time when he did it, he brought, there was like a 3-piece, and they played along to Buster Keaton's The Cameraman, and it was just really, there was something about the music that they played was really poignant with the sad love story element of it, which I thought was absolutely
I was there that
fantastic.
night. I remember it was just like behind the curtain. You had your little intimate audience, the musicians there, and it was something different and something very special.
Yeah, and it's an interesting, because the space can transform.
Plus there was popcorn as well.
There was popcorn,
but I spilt mine on the floor.
Oh, you didn't? I would have filled you back up.
And what about plans going forwards? What's
hang on, I've got another 2 to go.
Another 2?
I've got another 2.
Okay.
Yeah. So my other one was obviously, you played a big part in this, was so Dark Fest, which you host every year, but I particularly loved doing and working together on the gallery. So we've out the back of the pub now. We've changed it into a gallery, Newland Gallery. So I think the Dark Fest and the private launch, where we had Mathargo performing for that as well, and the fire pit and stuff. So I think that was my second favourite. And then the third favourite would have been Mike Palethorpe put on an event as part of Black History Month, and we had Linos and his Zimbabwean reggae and Scruffmouth performing. So
Brilliant.
I think they were probably the 3 standout events of the year that I remember.
There's probably a 4th one you've forgotten. But
Oh, totally. I forgot about some of them before you
exactly.
jog about them.
And what about plans going forward for the TOT? Because obviously you do the regular kind of jazz on a Sunday, but have you got other plans for different things for next year particularly?
So I think there's something that we could be doing more in the daytime. And I think because I really like the cinema element of it, that maybe there is like maybe a little cinema club that I could put on, like little Wednesday afternoons and things like that. I've really enjoyed meeting new people who are a bit nervous about DJing, but making it kind of a space where you don't have to, which was started at Train of Thought as far as that was my introduction of it. My first time ever doing it was at Train of Thought with you guys and Steve William, and then you know, Kev stopped that for a bit, and then, you know, we started doing it at the Toad and stuff. And it's nice to see people come forward and they don't know how to use any of the kit, but you just show them just the basics, and then just watching them go, it's just really nice. And then they bring their friends and they play their records to their friends and stuff. I think that's really special. So encouraging more people to do that, really. And probably introducing some like new afternoon kind of workshop stuff. Okay. That might happen.
Oh yeah, there's lots of workshops, isn't there? You can tend to do those kind of midweek.
Yeah, we've got you've got the pottery stuff. Well, we've got a jazz workshop on a Monday. I don't know if you know that, but every Monday we have about 10 to 15 musicians come in. Sea shanties, which is another thing.
I know.
Yeah.
I think Pete Fidge's spoken word thing worked brilliantly.
Yeah.
And I think there's.
I'm gonna have to sit down and write these down. We've done a lot, haven't we?
Yeah, because it was kind of midweek and people were there to listen.
Yeah.
I think that worked really well. Quick fire question: are you any good at the game Toad? And if not, why not?
I have hung up my cash my coins in, so to speak. It brought out the worst in me, shall we say?
Too competitive.
Well, there was a league started in Brighton, and I kind of maintained the kind of wonky fun element of it, where it was, you know, I had silly hats and musical instruments and stuff, and there are some people who actually just genuinely want to get down and play a solid game of Toad, and whereas I was bringing smoke machines and disco lights to it.
I'm more in your kind of that's it. You can be competitive to a certain level.
Yeah, it wasn't all about getting it in the hole, which I know, you know, but whatever. But I did get an 8 once, which I was euphoric. I actually ran out into the street screaming, and, you know, I could have taken all my clothes off. Thank God I didn't, but it was a very, very good feeling, I must admit.
Wow. And can you tell us a little bit about plans for Worthing Festival next year? Because I believe you're part of the community group that's now taken the helm from the council. The council have handed it over to you, which is excellent. And what have you got planned?
It was in the BBC
you can tell us
today.
About?
Yeah,
awesome.
So basically, I think in the past couple of years, the festival was, you know, it was a multi-venue kind of format, but it was very much kind of behind closed doors and not Joe Blogs on the street. Not everybody kind of knew about it. So we've kind of reset it a bit, and we're bringing it out into the open, into a park setting, and also so we're going to have like a festival park, which will be at Homefield Park, which will be very family friendly with lots of local bands, a youth stage, skate demos, and best in show for skating. There'll be hopefully like a little interactive sound garden.
Okay, wow.
And then there'll be food vendors and some educational kind of areas and stuff like that. There'll also be the flag trail there, which we were involving with Creative Waves for local school kids, and hopefully the children's ward at the hospital.
Is that going to be June? Is that half term of June?
It'll be the 21st and 22nd of June. Okay. And then we'll have Festival After Dark probably. We're still working on that concept, but that will be bringing in way more into the town centre. So it'll be like festival after parties. And they'll all be mapped out from, like, say, Festival Park, Festival After Dark. And then obviously just really encouraging and promoting a healthy fringe scene, basically. So that'll be, you know, so anybody who's, you know, the festival has to put on its own events in order to survive and all that kind of stuff. But it's really important that we maintain a really healthy fringe scene. So they'll bring it into our whole brochure, all of the promotion on that, all the social media, you know, strategy and stuff. So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Exciting times.
It is exciting actually.
Yeah. Excellent. And what about, final question, worst gig that you've had? Worst gig that you've attended?
Well, I'm only going to say it because it was recently, and it's not strictly my answer, but I did buy some tickets to go and see Tindersticks, and my other half just couldn't hack it. It was too was one of the songs like for like a good 20 minutes, so with not much backing, so he just kept looking at me, and I said, all right, come on, let's go. So yeah, so it was it was out there, and
how long did he last?
I think he lasted
20 minutes.
Not even that. I mean, 20 minutes was probably one song. So yeah, he just glared at me, and I said, okay, let's go. And it was really awkward because we came in late, where you can't open the door when they're performing. Yeah. So we waited, and then we were like third row from the front, and we were like just off centre, so everybody had to stand up to let us in, and then we sat down, and then he glared at me as if to say, what the hell have you brought me to?
You couldn't escape.
And then I had to wait for another song to finish, and then we got up, and I had to pretend that he was ill or something and get him out of there. I'm sorry, he's not well, I've got to go. So yeah, I probably would have enjoyed it if I was on my own, but anyway. I'm going to chuck him under the bus.
Thanks so much for talking.
No worries. Thank you for asking me to come on. No worries. Cheers.
Hello and welcome. This evening, today we have Luther here from Music Saves Worthing. Luther puts the defining 10 events on mainly at the Cellar Arts Club. So, Luther, how did you start? How did the idea come about Music Saves Worthing?
I can't actually remember. The catalyst was I came across a shop who I deal with my day job. Became sort of acquainted with Jack Hughes from Wang Chung.
Okay,
and basically, for some reason, I wanted to try and bring him to Worthing and put him on. But the idea, I thought of putting on a whole gig would end up being too expensive, and I wouldn't have too much of a risk, and I didn't know any venues where I could do it, and it was a complete sort of unknown. So I thought maybe if I could just have him come down and do a bit of a discussion, that's like just him then and no band, and it becomes a bit of a cheaper thing. So I made contact with him, and I don't know where that almost Desert Island Discs aspect came from. But yeah, so I got in touch with him, and he was up for it. And the original first one was all set for March 2020.
Right. Yeah.
And as a recurring theme from everyone,
we know what happened then.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the whole thing got delayed for at least 2 years, and in the meantime, I'd made contact with Terry Edwards, the saxophonist, and it became a bit of a who will end up being the first one. And in the end,
it became Terry, wasn't it? Yeah.
Terry was the first one, and Jack ended up being the second one, but Jack was always lined up to be the first one. I didn't expect it to be an ongoing thing. I think it was one of those things, I'll just stick it out there and we'll see
how it works.
See if people respond to it. And in February next year, it'll be 3 years we've been doing it.
I mean, how did you end up in the cellar then? How was that your home?
I think I was just trying to find an intimate space. They had assets like there's a sound system set up, so it's not as though one of those things you find a pub.
I mean, were you using the cellar? Had you been to the cellar much before that?
I think I had been there probably for some short film screenings and some other bits and bobs, but certainly wasn't as acquainted with everyone as I am now.
As you are now? No.
Yeah.
So it was sort of not luck in a way that you thought that was a good venue. I mean,
I think, like I say, it was just more stars and Lyman. They were open to it. Like I say, they had the equipment to run the night, so it wasn't a case of, right, I need to source a PA, decks, and all that sort of rigmarole. I could just go in there and set it up.
And as you say, it's really intimate. It's a fantastic space for talks, isn't it?
Yes, yeah.
I mean, I've been to most of them, and it works really well, doesn't it?
I think that intimacy is one of the draws of it, and if you took it elsewhere, obviously there is a expansion in the
you can get more people in,
but with it you lose something. So more isn't necessarily more.
No, and it also, because I mean, there's always a fantastic atmosphere afterwards, isn't there?
Yeah.
If you've managed to fit it all in the time, but generally it's just. I mean, that's one of my favourite things about it is you just see people milling about, chatting to the artists. It's so intimate, isn't it?
Yeah.
So how many have you done? Is what I was about to say.
We've done a date with David Gedge last week, and that's our 24th. So
24. So it is. Yeah.
Generally, we've worked out. I mean, obviously, the first year we didn't do one every month because I couldn't get the guest. We have a little break for the summer because, as you know, there's not much point. People are away
also
on
the
holiday.
cellar closes for a few weeks in the summer, and
You-
getting people out in August is almost impossible, isn't it? Really?
So you're in the whim of that. I think previous years I haven't done one in December because traditionally they run on the 4th Thursday of the month. Whereas
that's probably Christmas Day one year, I should think. Yes.
Probably, yeah. So with this
Quite
one
a challenge
this
to
year,
get people out on Christmas. Well, more of a challenge to get volunteers in the cellar.
yeah.
Really.
So this year we just managed to squeeze David Gedge in, like, pre-Christmas little thing.
And which was a fantastic night, I have to say. I mean,
it's good atmosphere.
It really was, wasn't it? I mean, you are obviously planning to carry this on into next year.
Yes, yeah. So hopefully we've got a guest for end of January already lined up who's associated, probably more of a Britpop era of bands, but a very beloved band. That'll be announced at some point, probably later this month. And then always looking up guests.
Announce it on Christmas Day as an extra gift.
I don't think anyone's on the socials on Christmas Day to see it.
I wouldn't bet on it.
So
I know plenty of people who probably will be.
Probably are, already doom scrolling instead of watching the King's Speech. And generally I always like to hope that each guest will lead to a few others. That hasn't always been the case. So generally, I just get in touch with people directly on Twitter and Instagram.
But it has. I'm guessing the word has been spread, and people who've enjoyed it. I think they all have a good, enjoyable experience. So they probably talk to each other. And
I think from a guest point of view, I have a little PDF presentation that's got photos of it and that sort of thing, and explains a bit about the night. So any guests I'm trying to get, I always send them that. And I think the thing that does get people is when they see the people who've done it in the past.
It's like putting gigs on, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sometimes if they see, I've never heard of this place, but then they look at the roster of people you've had, it does make quite a difference, doesn't it?
I certainly got one guest who this year who I've been trying to get for a while, and then he decided not to do it. But then when he saw another guest had done it, he got in touch with me and said,
okay,
actually.
I'll do it.
Go on and I'll do it. Yeah. So that was quite nice. But like I say, I think once they see that lineup of the posters of guests who've done it, and we go, well, if he's done it and she's done it and she's done it and he's done it, then
I could fit in with that.
Yeah. Then it's not below me.
No. I mean, have you had any? Well, not going to ask you favourite, but any particular ones that have plucked your interest more than anything else?
I think there was one particular story that always sticks in my head, was with Jake Shillingford from My Life Story, where sometimes the 10 is in a chronological order, and his you could definitely see was in a chronological order.
Yeah.
But in the sort of middle of it, he had a specials song. And to me, that didn't make any sense because you'd have thought it had been earlier in the running order. So it was one of those things where it really intrigued me, like, why has he chosen this specials track? And the story came out that he was basically the lead singer for the Specials for about 3 weeks to do a tour in Spain. And I just thought that was completely nuts. And it came back because I think he lived across the road from a member of the band who'd heard him rehearsing and practicing in his room, in his front room, and come and knocked on the door and explained, saying, we've lost our singer due to various circumstances that I won't go into here. Do you fancy filling in? And I just thought it was such a bonkers, crazy story. Yeah, I mean, pre-internet sort of thing.
Yes.
Nobody's taking photos, and he said it went down great, and I got to sing with the Specials for 3 weeks.
Quite pretty good to put on your CV, isn't it?
Yeah. And that was pre My Life Story getting signed or anything like that. So that one in particular, I think some of these stories do come out that they don't appear necessarily in books that the artists have done. They don't necessarily have appeared in interviews that have run in magazines. And especially because we're asking them to specifically talk about songs. An interview in Mojo might be asking you about your album and your tour and this.
And who did this. Yeah.
Whereas they're talking about something that they love or means something to them, how it came to them. And I think that's another thing. Sometimes some artists, when I've asked them about it, they've gone, some artists are quite shy.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things, it's like with Leonard Cohen. If you ask them to explain the Muse, they clam up. But if you ask them to explain why they love somebody else's music, they can get very passionate
totally,
and energized.
Well, they probably feel weird being passionate about their own music. But.
Well, I mean, Terry Edwards' first guest, he chose 10 songs that he played on.
But he had played on quite a
diverse range.
Most people probably couldn't have got away with that, but with his diversity. But so this is obviously going to carry on through next year.
Yeah, hopefully so.
But also, you're now setting up. Well, you're literally in the middle, as if of yesterday, setting up a fanzine under the same name.
Yes.
Well, it's not. Is it? I mean, what is it? It's a fanzine. It's a magazine.
I think I kind of saying to people, it's a fanzine to try and lower expectations, but at the same time, it's not a sort of DIY, on typewriter and photocopier.
It's not sniffing glue.
No, it's certainly not sniffing glue. I guess a semi-professional is a way of sort of pitching it. So a sort of semi-professional A5 fanzine. That's this is going to sound a bit pompous, a celebration of the musical ecosystem from Worthing and vicinity. So we're not looking at artists in Brighton and the scene there. We're looking...
Because it's got its own.
It's got its own, and I don't think it needs that kind of leg up or sort of exposure.
No, Worthing probably still does, doesn't it? Yeah.
So we've got Worthing, but also it'll include... I guess it's a kind of West Sussex type thing, so we can go up to Horsham, Chichester.
You might try and find the culture of Littlehampton. I mean, that could be.
Who knows?
That could be a challenge.
Who knows?
And I can say that I lived there for years.
But it's not just the musicians. It's DJs, it's promoters, it's venues, it's record shops. It's instrument makers. So it's trying to look at all the people who are involved in.
It's pretty much a similar remit than me and Colm have come up with this Train of Thought Presents, which is weird because pretty much the same time. Because I think it was I mentioned to you, and then you went, oh well, guess what? Which is perfect, really, because it should go hand in hand.
You're going. Yeah, we're going future technology as I go backwards.
Which is quite weird for me. Going to any technology is quite bizarre. It must be said. But I mean, when's that?
So the plan is for it to be a free fanzine available in various venues and retail establishments around town. So I'm putting together a dummy issue to pitch to advertisers. I hope that they'll cover the print run, and then that will be... The plan is to try and have it out for the end of January, and then ideally bi-monthly. It might be a little bit more like buying a bit monthly.
Five a year seems to be quite often.
The way it naturally falls. But I've already sort of got the dummy issue articles lined up. Been in touch with all of the people about that, and I've kind of got the second issue planned on paper in my head.
It's good to have sort of like 1.5, 2.5, even if you have half of it sort of ready, almost sort of to take the pressure off deadline.
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
and also if you don't give a strict date, that does help.
It doesn't matter. Nobody's keeping to it.
No one's going to say, "Oh, you haven't had one of those out for 9 weeks now."
Yeah, and I think obviously looking for people who've got something happening to talk about. I'm not saying it's not a listings magazine, so it's not, if somebody's had something out in December, it's still relevant at the end of January and for the next 2 months. If somebody's doing something start of March, hopefully it catches that first issue.
In a way, because with what we're planning, we want this program to be a listings of sorts.
Yeah,
that's why we are aiming to be every month.
Yeah,
I mean, hopefully that's the plan, and then have a listings, because there isn't a listings thing in Worthing, and the amount of people that come in and ask in the shop what's this week, because there is a lot going on. Yeah, but this is more about you. So so that's pretty much going to come out as a dummy run, as you say.
The dummy issue will be pretty much the basis of the first issue. And like I said, that's the thing that I would take to advertisers and go, here's a little space to put an advert here if you'd like it, and here. And if people don't fill that space, then I've got a little thing planned.
There's always bits of art or pictures you can put in, isn't there? I
guess.
Well,
I've got a little thing that I was going to use as the filler bit, but it will be a genuine thing, is taking photos and chatting to people in the street who've bought a record or CD or piece of music from Train of Thought or Music Mania or whatever shop, and collar them and say, do you want to be featured as, like, what have you bought? What have you just been listening to? Little sort of vox pop snapshot. But then equally possibly also involving the shops. So what's Kev?
Well, you know shops pretty well, and I know shops quite well.
Yeah, but so it's for music, music saviours, and I can't remember what I called the other little bit. Music sellers or something was the two little things, little vox pops. So there's local people in it as well.
So thank you, Luther.
Thank you, Kev. Thank you, Colin, for having me.
Keep a lookout for Facebook, all the socials, which they're now called. So
yes, Instagram, Music Saves UK, Twitter, probably pulling away from as a lot of people are. On Blue Sky as well. On Facebook under Music Saves Worthing. You can follow me there.
So keep a lookout.
Thank you, Kev.
Hi, Harry, and welcome to our first ever, our pilot edition of the TOT Presents podcast.
Thans for having me.
How are you today?
Yeah, I'm very well. I'm very well. Thank you for having me on. Appreciate it.
So, kick us off. Could you tell us how you first got into music promotion and then later on into managing bands?
Yeah. So I started. I was in bands first. So I was in a metalcore band many moons ago now, and I'd looked at all these different festival bills like Download and Sonisphere and all Bloodstock and all these sort of festivals, and I just loved the amount of talent that you could get on one poster, and so I decided to start my own festival. So I did that when I was 17.
Wow.
Whereabouts
was that?
Sorry?
Whereabouts was that?
So the very first one was at Danehill Village Hall in the middle of absolutely nowhere. Nobody came.
Big metal crowd? No.
No one turned up at all. Most of the people that turned up were the audiences of the parents of some of the bands that were younger, the teenage bands, and their parents had driven them there, so they come into
uncles,
the gig.
aunts,
yeah,
dog.
and that was it. So we did that for a few years, and then when I restarted Hammer Down post COVID, I just had a band called Weller, who I still manage now, approach me and say, could you manage us? You know bigger bands than we do because you booked them for the festival. Could you manage us? Because we want to get better gigs and all this. And I put it off for a while, actually, because I was living in Cardiff at the time. And I was running Hammer Down from Cardiff and coming back and forth on 7-hour coaches to do events and stuff. In 2023, August, I quit my sales job in Cardiff, moved back down here with immediate effect and started a management company. Weller were like, yes, please.
Yep.
So we started with them, and it's been a crazy 17, 18 months, whatever it's been now.
Yeah, you've gone all in, haven't you now?
I have gone all in. Yeah. Hence the name, eh? Yeah.
Scary.
Yeah.
And what about Worthing gigs? What were your top 3 Worthing gigs from this year? I was going to say last year, but we're still in 2024.
Yeah, we are still just about in 2024, aren't we? Best gigs of this year, I would say, number 1, Henge at the Factory. That was fantastic. Do you know Henge?
I was there.
Oh, you were the Henge?
No,
Henge.
I was at Tankers the Henge.
That's another thing. And isn't that weird that they were only about a month apart as well?
Who are now just Tankers.
Are they?
They've renamed to just Tankers.
They've dropped the Henge part?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because of that.
Because of the... I see. Well, Henge are amazing. They're this bizarre, psychedelic, alien-based rock band where there's...
Yeah.
One human, several
great
aliens.
festival band, yeah.
Yeah, perfect festival band. They're brilliant. I'd like to get them for Hammer Down one year, definitely. They were fantastic. Another one at the Factory, Big Country. That was pretty cool. Old school band from Glasgow. That were big in the 80s and the 90s. They were really cool. It was cool to see a band like that. That was great. I mean, the Factory's given me a lot of opportunities this year because I work there part time, so I get to work with the band prior to the show, so setting up with them, chatting to them in the green room, just and that's quite cool. And then I suppose the third one's probably gonna have to be the Halloween one we did at the Dickens because Such Better Days was such a good headline band. They were fantastic. They were so much fun. The energy was mental. They all dressed as Scooby-Doo characters. There was beach balls flying about all over the gaff. It was brilliant. Yeah, it was really good. Those are the top 3, I'd say. Yeah.
Awesome. And what are your plans for gigs at the Dickens with Hammer Down or Hammer Down takeovers going forwards?
Yeah. It's so what we're doing really. I mean, firstly, since Bar 42 went a few years ago, for those who don't know it, obviously it was a bar down on the seafront that had a lot of alternative music. I used to go there all the time. One of my festivals years ago was there. So it's been missing that for a while, and I've lived in Worthing again since January. So I've only been here a year again. There's just nothing going on outside of the factory and the venue. You need a grassroots venue. And there's other places, there's Audio Active, there's a Cellar Bar, and there's other things, but there's not a dedicated rock and metal bar like there was before. So that's was really the goal. And I came to one of your shows, and it was like death metal that night, wasn't it? It was heavy, right? And in March or whatever it was, and I thought, well, that is the perfect place.
Do you remember which band it was?
I remember Great Mother played, but I can't remember who else was on it.
Okay.
It was in March. It was a good gig, so we started that off as the sort of replacement alternative bar. That's what I'm trying to do with it. And so for next year, we're just developing the venue bit by bit. So the whole goal with it is after each show, invest a little bit of cash in the next upgrade, a new light, paint the back wall black, right? Invest in some face lights that the photographers can get some shots, get a new PA, and it's just one thing at a time.
Yeah. Because we've talked about maybe fundraising for a house.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to do that, right? We're going to sort that lineup out for end of February, and that'd be really cool. Because you've got to do it in stages. You can't just say, hey, Mr. Venue person, we put on a gig the other night and you made 200 extra quid. If you put 10 grand in, it would be great. But you've got to do it in stages. You've got to prove your worth, I think. So that's what we've been doing with that. So for next year, it's just continue to upgrade it little bit by little bit. And for me, it's actually a really, really helpful tool. Because I was just saying to Kev outside that I'm in a really fortunate position now. A great problem to have is that I get loads of bands emailing every day, literally on a daily basis. I probably get about 10, 15 a week. Bands saying, can we play your festival, your show, whatever. And I can't vet them all. And I can't also risk putting on a band that is unprofessional or difficult to work with or just not very good at the big festivals that we're doing these days.
So you try them out.
So you say, hey, look, can't. It's all full up, but I can give you this. Come and see what it's like, And it's,
I've seen some of your gigs. Some great bands have come down and
good.
I'm
glad.
Travelled from Bristol or Oxfordshire. Was it Glass Bridges and
great bands.
Cypher.
Brilliant.
I loved it, and they turned up with all their merch as well. Travelled and brought all their merch as well.
So that should be.
Definitely.
Absolutely. And so that's the goal of it is. And I've picked several bands from doing those ones that we've put on some of the bigger ones. Such Better Days are a perfect example because they're playing our big Hammer Down warm-up show a fortnight before the festival in July now, off the back of that. The lineup for the main... I told them I would have put them on the main festival had I not already booked it by the time of that October show, but they were so good. So I'm like, hop on that one, and let's do it bit by bit. And that's just one example. And it's also allowed me to vet some bands that haven't been so fantastic. And, that means I've not risked putting them on the bigger ones, so that really helps.
Okay. And did you ever have long hair and headbang?
Do you know what?
You're pretty well presented for a kind of a...
Yeah, I'm unusual for metalhead. Yeah. I've had longer hair. It was never down to my waistline or anything, but I used to just not get it cut and be a scruffy lad. So I did have it sort of close to shoulder length for a little bit. But I always headbang regardless. Like that hair doesn't last very long when I'm at a metal festival. It's still the suit, but I'm in the mosh pit, I'm all going for it. Yeah.
And what about other plans for next year? So, I've seen stuff's coming out about there's Tigers of Pantang at the factory in 11th of April, I think it is.
That's it, spot on. Yeah.
And what else can you say what's the first gig at the Dickens? Do you know the lineup for that? Or
So the first gig for the Dickens, that's on sale now. So they're still last Friday of every month, and then there's also sporadic stuff happening throughout the calendar as well. So we've already got a couple booked for early and mid-month in February and May and a few other places. But the first of our religious monthly end of the month takeover gigs is a band called And. Spelled AAND with a question mark. And they're from Bournemouth, and they're brilliant, and they're just a barrel of laughs, and it's really handy for them because the following day on the Saturday they're playing Icebreaker Festival in Portsmouth. So it's another local one that they can do to make a weekend out of it, and that's a really good name because they're doing really well. It's a good name for us to have at the Dickens. A bit like when we had Bleed Again as a warm-up show for Download. It's a good band to have said, we've had that. It adds a little bit of legitimacy to the Dickens when you can put a few names in there. So that's going to be a really, really good night, and we've got some great local bands as the supports. So we've got Archers Killing Archers, Concordia, and Red Better Red Lips. I just forgot
They're
the name.
local. I know them. Yeah,
You know
it'll come
them?
to me. I know Concordia. Yeah, it will come to me in a minute. The
It
name
will.
of that band.
The
Yeah, I've
Lips,
not
something
seen
to do
them
with
play
lips.
yet. Not seen them play yet, but we've talked about putting them
Yeah,
on.
yeah. They'd asked a couple of times, and I just had a slot, so I said, "Yeah, okay, let's do it." And that's the point. Is it's they'll come and show off what they can do, and then we'll put them on some bigger
young
things.
band, aren't they? Young band,
absolutely.
like, yeah. And what about for the festival in the summer? What your headliners? Your top 3? Your top?
Yeah,
10.
yeah. That's exciting. So it's at Chalk, the biggest venue we've ever put it on, and we've got 2 stages. So Chalk now own a downstairs venue called Dust. So we've got a main stage upstairs, second stage downstairs. We've already got bands like the Raven Age announced, who are, I mean, they're outstanding. They're some of the best musicians I've ever listened to.
Not seen them
Incredible.
live, but I've heard them.
No, neither have I. And this is half the reason I do this show, because if I can't go to the gig, I'll spend $2,000 booking instead, right? We've got Tigers of Pantanga playing that. We've got quite a lot of new wave of British heavy metal. That late 70s, early 80s era. A band called Demon, a band called Gypsy's Kiss, who are the band that Steve Harris from Iron Maiden first played in. So they're the sort of predecessor to Maiden. So that's fun. That's really cool. So there's a good chance Steve Harris might rock up if it's both his son and his old band are playing. You never know. So that's great. And then we've got loads of other talent on that. Lots of local bands. So yeah, it's gonna be cool.
Very exciting. Very exciting.
It's very exciting. Yeah.
And you'll finish like on your feet again. Well, not on your feet, on your back.
Yeah.
Wiped out.
Yeah. Well, yeah. All being carried around the venue, that happens sometimes. So yeah.
And final question then, a curveball for you. So worst gig.
The worst gig I've been to, whatever, or this year, or
whatever you like. This week, this year,
the worst.
Ever.
Oh,
a gig
God.
that sticks in your mind for not particularly good reasons.
I don't know. I really don't know.
Or flip it and go best gig then.
Yeah, I don't. This. Oh, can I think of a really bad gig? Maybe I'll just erase them from my mind. I can't really think of a particularly awful gig.
Well, mine was, because it'll give you thinking time, was I walked out of Victoria's from the Pixies in the summer because I was just bored senseless after half. I was tired as well.
No way.
It was at the end. Pixies were on. Half an hour. I said to my mate, I'm walking home. So half an hour walk home. Got to be up at 8 o'clock in the morning because I was working there as well. Walked out of that one.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, if you're talking maybe an individual set, I mean, I've definitely seen some bands at Download that I thought were pretty awful. I mean, no fault of their own. They're not really my thing anyway. But at Download 2016, or as everyone knows it, Drownload, pretty bad that year, or Downpour, or Brownload. There was a lot of nicknames that year.
Yeah, that last one's not good.
No, but it was that. I can tell you it was. Baby Metal set. I mean, A, it was only about 10 minutes because the torrential rain. B, everybody left, right? Because the rain was so horrific and there was so few shelters, everybody was just sort of running away. And C, it just sounded horrific from where I was. I mean, I was quite far up the hill, to be fair. But yeah, I mean, that was a diabolical set. But yeah, as I say, not really through much fault of their own. But I imagine the diehard fans are pretty peed off. But I was just casually waiting for the next band anyway. So no drama for me.
Wow. So thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me
our
on.
First pilot ever
It's an honour.
podcast.
I appreciate it.
And we're really looking forward to seeing what Hammerdown do next year. Thank you very much.
Me too.
That's right. That's the first show. That's our pilot show.
And hopefully everyone enjoyed listening to Jen and Luther.
Harry and Luther.
Great guests. And we're hoping to have them back on at some point because Jen will come on maybe to talk about the festival. Harry's got huge plans with Hammerdown
Luther's
coming up.
magazine will be out shortly.
Exactly. So that's all good. And if people want to get involved, either to come on as a guest or a performer or a promoter, or want to come on and even host and ask some questions, then please email totpresentsworthing@gmail.com.
And just the plan, this is a pilot, but later on we are intending to have a proper listings. But also it's January coming up and there's not that many things going on in January, but I'll just give you a few here from the Cellar Arts Club. Cellar Arts Club reopens in middle of January. They got comedy on the 16th, Let There Be Rock on the 17th, and the legendary Goth Night, the Snake Pit, on the 18th. There's an art happening on the 23rd, Union Indie Night, 24th, Radio 4A, and then the First Defining 10 on the Thursday the 30th. So you can check all those out on the Cellars Facebook, etc. We work quite closely with with the seller, and they will be covered in the next ones. And there will be a more definitive listings, but say January is quite a hard month. So anything else? Oh, shall I now do the quiz?
Well, you could do a quiz, but I was thinking competition time, Kev.
That's what I meant. That is a competition, yeah. Okay, there's always going to be a competition, and Harry's offering 2 tickets for the Hammer Down. The Tigers, a legendary metal band, Tigers of Pang Tang, are playing, which at least 2 members were in a 1977 punk band. What was the name of that punk band? And then you've got the chance to win 2 copies, 2 tickets even, to see the Tigers of Pang Tang. When?
Well, it's 2 tickets for the Hammer Down warm-up show.
Oh, Hammer Down warm-up show, sorry.
Which is in Worthing. It's 5 original bands. Can't remember the date of it. I think it's June or July.
Check that out. Yeah, but that's what you can win.
And email us.
Email the answers.
Or pop into the shop.
Or pop into Train of Thought and have a chat.
Actual face-to-face conversation.
And we promise we won't be much more professional than this going forward. So hopefully you've all enjoyed it. Good night.
Excellent. Thank you.